90 years old, walking the fields before sunrise. No cane, no walker, no complaint. That is not an accident, and it is not luck. It is something we do every single morning, something so ordinary that most people in the English world would look right past it and never think twice. But I want to tell you something first, something that might surprise you. The difference between a man who walks strong at 90 and a man who can barely rise from his chair at 70 has almost nothing to do with age. I have watched it my whole life. I grew up watching it. And when I started paying attention, really paying attention, I noticed that the men and women in this community who lost their leg strength early, the ones who started leaning on door frames and holding walls, they almost always shared the same pattern. And it was not a sickness. It was a habit, a missing habit, one that most of the English world simply stopped doing somewhere along the way. My grandfather, Samuel Byler, walked without help until he was 93. He farmed, he carried, he climbed stairs. When he finally did slow down, it was not his legs that gave out first. It was his heart at 96 on a Tuesday morning after breakfast. Strong legs until the end. And when I asked him once what his secret was, he looked at me with that particular patience of his and said something I have never forgotten. He said, "Amos, I just never stopped." That sounds almost too simple to mean anything, but by the time we reach the end of what I want to share with you today, I believe those 4 words will carry more weight than anything a doctor has ever told you about aging. Let me start with something that most people do not realize is happening, and that is already happening to you, even if you cannot feel it yet. When people in the English world talk about weak legs at 60, 70, 80, they almost always say the same thing. They say, well, that's just getting older, they accept it. Their doctors sometimes accept it too. Maybe there is a prescription for it, maybe there is a referral to physical therapy that costs more than a month of groceries, and the legs keep getting weaker anyway. Here where I live, we do not accept that. Not because we are stubborn, though some people in my community would say we are a little stubborn, but because we simply do not see it happening the way the English world does. And when you grow up surrounded by men and women in their 80s doing real physical work, you stop believing that weakness is just what age does to a body. You start looking for the real reason. And the real reason, when you get down to it, is blood flow. Not a dramatic thing, not a complicated thing, but one of the most important things happening inside your legs every single day, whether you are paying attention to it or not. Here is something your doctor may not have explained to you. The muscles in your legs, particularly in your calves and your thighs, are not just for walking, they are pumps. Every time those muscles contract, they squeeze blood back up through your veins, back towards your heart. Doctors in the English world now have a name for this. They call the calf muscle the second heart. We never called it that here. We just called it living. When those muscles stop being used consistently every day, they lose their pumping ability, blood begins to pool, circulation slows. The muscles themselves start receiving less of what they need to stay strong and repair themselves. And that weakness, that heaviness in the legs, that stiffness in the mornings, it is not age doing that to you. It is stillness. And now I need to tell you about the morning, because that is where everything begins, and everything can change. In the English world, I have been told most people wake up and within 20 minutes they are sitting again. Sitting to eat, sitting in front of a screen, maybe sitting in a car to go somewhere where they sit some more, and then they wonder why by mid-morning their legs already feel like lead. Here, the morning is different, and I do not mean different because we are heroes or because we are punishing ourselves. I mean different because of a practice so woven into our daily life that we have never thought to question it. We move before the day asks us to. My grandmother, God rest her, was the one who first made me understand this. Not with words, with a bucket. She was 78 years old, and every single morning, before the fire was fully lit, before the bread was started, she was on her feet. She walked the length of the house. She walked the porch. She walked to the barn and back if the weather allowed, never rushed, never for exercise. In the way the English world thinks about exercise, she would have laughed at that idea. It was simply her way of waking her body up, getting the blood moving before the stillness of sleep had a chance to set in like cold cement. She said her own mother taught her, and her mother before that, a chain of mornings passed down like a recipe. And I watch the English world, and I see that chain was broken somewhere. Somewhere between the invention of things that made life comfortable and easy, between the soft chair and the remote control and the phone that sits in your hand all day, somewhere in there, the morning movement stopped, and the legs started failing decades too soon. Now, some of you might be thinking, but Amos, I do walk. I take a walk sometimes. I move around the house. Is that not enough? And this is where I want to be honest with you, my friend, because what I am about to say is the part that most people miss, and it is the part that I believe makes the real difference. It is not just about walking, it is about when you walk and what you do while you walk. Most people who say they walk, they do it later in the day, after the sitting, after the stillness has already set in, after the blood has already slowed. And what happens then is that they are spending that walk fighting their way back to baseline instead of starting the day already alive. In our community, the movement happens first, before the first meal, before the first hour of stillness. And it is not long, it does not need to be long. What it needs to be is consistent and specific. This is also a good time for me to say something that matters. What I share with you is the way of life I was raised in. It is not medical advice. I am not a doctor, and I do not pretend to be one. Every one of you has your own body, your own history, your own doctor you should be speaking with. What I offer is what I have seen, what I have lived, what has kept the people in this community walking strong long after the English world expects them to be sitting still. If you find value in what I share here and you want to keep hearing it, stay close. I would love for you to be here when we talk about what we eat in the morning and why I believe it has as much to do with leg strength as the movement itself. You can subscribe so you do not miss that. It takes 1 second, and I would be glad to have you. But let us keep going, because we are not to the heart of it yet. The specific morning habit I am talking about has 3 parts, and I want to walk you through each one because they work together the way the links in a fence work together. You cannot leave one out and expect the fence to hold. The first part is rising movement. It sounds almost insultingly simple, but consider what your body has been doing for the last 7 or 8 hours. It has been almost entirely still. Your circulation has slowed. Your joints have settled, your muscles have cooled, and yet most people stand up, feel that stiffness and soreness, and either ignore it or accept it as normal. Here where I live, we use it as a signal. That stiffness is your body asking for something, and the answer is not coffee. The answer is movement. Slow, deliberate movement within the first 10 minutes of waking up, before the kettle, before breakfast, before anything else. My father had a habit of walking the fence line every single morning. Rain, cold, it did not matter much, not because the fence always needed walking, but because he said it was the only way to shake off the night. He told me once that the men who sit down to breakfast still half asleep are the men who feel old before their time. He lived by that. He was still splitting small amounts of kindling at 81. That first movement does not need to be a hike. In fact, for many of you, it should not be. What it needs to do is get blood moving through the legs, warm the muscles from their resting state, and signal to your body that the day has started. 5 to 10 minutes, the length of a porch, a hallway, a yard, slow, steady, deliberate. The second part is what I call the heel and toe. And this is the piece I have never seen anyone in the English world talk about, at least not in the way we do it here. In our community, the older people, the ones who still move well into their 80s and 90s, they have a habit, often unconscious, of rising on their toes and rocking back on their heels while they stand at the stove, while they wait at a door, while they talk to a neighbor. It looks like nothing. It is not nothing. That simple motion, rising onto the toes and pressing back down through the heel, is one of the most powerful things you can do for circulation in the lower leg. It squeezes the calf muscle, which, as I said earlier, acts like a second pump for your blood. It keeps the valves in your veins working, it warms the feet, and it requires nothing, no equipment, no special clothing, no gym, no money. My grandmother used to do this without even thinking about it while she waited for the bread to rise. I do it now at my age whenever I am standing still for more than a minute. It is simply part of how we inhabit our bodies. Try it right now if you like. Rise slowly on your toes, hold for just a moment, then press back through your heel 10 times, see how your calves feel. That warmth you feel is blood moving where it had not quite been reaching. The third part is the one that surprised me most when I started thinking about why it works. Because it is not physical at all, or at least it does not seem physical at first. It is purpose. Here where I live, people do not exercise because they have been told exercise is good for them. They move because there is something that needs doing. The garden needs attention. The fire needs wood. The animals need water. The grandchildren need watching. There is always a reason to get up, to go outside, to use the body. And in the English world, when the children grow up and leave, when the career ends, when the yard gets smaller for many people, the reasons to move begin to disappear. Not because their body has aged, because their day has no pull to it. I have sat with older men in the English world, relatives of people I know, and they have told me this without quite saying it. They say they feel tired all the time. They say their legs feel heavy. And when I gently ask what they did that morning, they say they watched the news. They had coffee. They waited. Waited for what? I sometimes wonder. Here, you do not wait. You go out to meet the morning. Even when your body resists, especially when your body resists, because the resistance itself is the signal that you are needed. This is what my grandfather meant. I just never stopped. He did not mean he never rested. He rested well, but he never stopped finding reasons to move, to be useful, to be present in his own life. And now I want to tie all of this together for you, because I know some of you are sitting with questions. Maybe you are thinking about your own mornings. Maybe you are thinking about how different they look from what I have described. Maybe you are wondering if it is too late. It is not too late. I have seen people in their 70s make this shift and feel a real difference inside of 3 weeks. Not a miracle. A pattern changed. The morning habit that has kept legs strong in our community for generations is not a secret formula. It is not a pill you swallow or a device you strap on. It is 3 things woven into the first minutes of every day. Movement before stillness, a small, consistent action that keeps the blood pumping through the calf, and a reason, a real living reason to use your body. That is it. That is what the English world calls a revelation. We just call it Tuesday. Your legs were not designed to fail at 70, they were designed to carry you. But they need to be used in the morning, every morning, before the world has a chance to put you back in the chair. So here is what I would ask of you. Tomorrow morning, before the coffee, before the phone, before the news, stand up, walk the hallway, walk the porch, rise on your toes 10 times, and find one small thing in your home or your yard that is worth doing. One thing that asks your legs to carry you somewhere. That is the beginning. And beginnings, in my experience, are more powerful than most people allow themselves to believe. Tell me in the comments, what is the one thing your body struggles with most after 60? I read every word. I want to know what is weighing on you because it helps me understand what to share next. And stay close, my friend, because next time I will share the way we eat in the morning, something the modern world forgot long before most of us were born.